The moment two motorcyclists decided to harass a couple and their small horse on a tranquil street in Houston, they had no idea they were making a grave mistake. Lost in their laughter and bold enough to whip the little horse for their amusement, it didn't take long for them to realize that the man accompanying the horse was none other than action star Keanu Reeves. And Keanu, with his piercing gaze and innate sense of justice, was not one to let such cruelty go unanswered. The afternoon on Eldridge Street exuded an unusual serenity. The golden rays of the setting sun bathed the pavement in a soft glow, casting everything in a gentle, warm light. A light breeze carried the fragrance of flowers from nearby gardens, mingling with the faint hum of distant traffic, creating a harmonious melody. From the doorway of a modest yet neat house, Keanu Reeves stepped out, dressed simply in a black t-shirt and jeans. His demeanor was unassuming, each step deliberate and calm, embodying his characteristic humility. Beside him was Alexandra Grant, poised and confident, holding the reins of Peanut, their sturdy miniature horse. Peanut's deep chestnut coat gleamed under the sunlight, shimmering like polished wood with every step. The horse's steady hoofbeats created a rhythmic clopping on the sidewalk, blending seamlessly with the peaceful surroundings. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Keanu asked, a hint of concern in his voice as he glanced at Alexandra. "Taking the whole family to the store, especially with Peanut in tow?" Alexandra sighed patiently. "Keanu, we've talked about this. Peanut needs some exercise, and it's just a short walk. 3 blocks. We'll be back before you know it." Keanu hesitated, his brows knitting together. "I still think I should go alone. Fewer people will notice." Alexandra gestured toward their casual outfits. "Look at us. No one's going to recognize us dressed like this. Besides, it's a beautiful evening. Peanut could use the fresh air too." Keanu couldn't argue with that. The soft sunlight and the calm atmosphere were undeniably inviting. He relented with a small nod. "All right, but let's make it quick." They set off, Peanut leading confidently, occasionally lowering its head to investigate new scents along the way. The neighborhood was quiet, with only the occasional sound of a distant car. Keanu found himself relaxing, watching Peanut's steady, deliberate movements. The small horse was a blend of strength and gentleness, embodying an unassuming grace. However, their tranquility was soon interrupted. The sudden roar of motorcycle engines shattered the stillness, accompanied by thick exhaust fumes that lingered in the air. 2 heavy Indian motorcycles sped past, their riders' raucous laughter echoing down the street. One of them, a burly man with a thick beard, turned and shouted, "Look at that tiny horse. It's more of a toy than a real horse." Keanu's jaw tightened, his expression calm yet steely as he watched the bikers ride off. "Unbelievable," he muttered under his breath, his measured tone betraying a simmering anger. Alexandra gripped Peanut's reins more firmly, her voice tinged with unease. "Keanu, I can't believe people like that are in this neighborhood. Should we turn back?" Keanu weighed her words, his gaze fixed on the store just 2 blocks ahead. After a moment, he shook his head decisively. "No, we're almost there. We should finish what we started." Alexandra nodded, though her apprehension lingered. "All right, let's hope they've gone." They resumed their walk, though Keanu's watchful gaze now scanned their surroundings. His protective instincts were on high alert. Peanut, blissfully unaware of the tension, maintained its steady pace, oblivious to its owner's unease. Trying to ease the mood, Keanu quipped, "You know, I always thought I'd look better with a big, imposing horse, but Peanut has really grown on me." Alexandra chuckled softly. "Peanut has a unique charm. You shouldn't underestimate its bravery." As they approached the store, the fading sunlight bathed the neighborhood in a soft amber glow. Yet, the lengthening shadows cast an ominous air, as if hinting at trouble ahead. Keanu murmured, more to himself than to Alexandra, Let's hope those guys are gone, and we can get through this without any issues. But Alexandra's sudden, sharp intake of breath made him pause. Following her gaze, he spotted several large motorcycles parked outside the store, their riders loitering nearby with an air of arrogance. The setting sun cast long shadows across the lot, amplifying the tension. Alexandra instinctively slowed her pace, whispering, "We should turn around. This doesn't look good." But Keanu shook his head, his voice steady yet firm. "No, we've come this far. Turning back would just mean dealing with Peanut sulking all night. And tomorrow." Positioning himself on Alexandra's left, he ensured she was shielded by his presence. "Walk on this side so I can protect you if needed," he said, his protective instinct evident in his tone and demeanor. As they drew closer, the motorcyclists noticed them. One of them, a tall man wearing a worn cowboy hat, stepped forward deliberately, blocking their path. "Well, look who we've got here," he said with a mocking sneer. "Where are you taking that little horse? It looks more like an old mule." The man's laughter echoed loudly, prompting his companions to join in with jeering remarks. Keanu, keeping his composure, pulled his hat lower and continued walking. "We're not bothering anyone. This store allows animals and there's no sign saying otherwise," he said, his tone calm but resolute. The biker froze for a moment, his eyes narrowing as he scrutinized Keanu more closely. "Wait a minute," he said, his voice shifting. "I know you. You're Keanu Reeves, aren't you?" He turned to his companion. "Rogue, you recognize this guy, right?" Rogue studied Keanu more closely, his earlier aggression fading like smoke in the wind. "Well, damn, it really is him," Rogue muttered under his breath. The second man, Bruiser, stepped forward, extending a hand. "I'm Bruiser and this here is Rogue. We're big fans of yours, Mr. Reeves." Keanu didn't shake hands. His gaze remained icy. "Real fans don't harass women or threaten others," he stated bluntly. "And they certainly don't bully just because they think they can get away with it." His words hung in the air, heavy and sharp, making the atmosphere tense. Alexandra gently placed a hand on Keanu's arm, her voice soft and soothing. "Keanu, let's just leave," she whispered. But Rogue, embarrassed by the rejection, reached out and grabbed Alexandra's arm. "Our rules are our rules," he sneered. "You can't bring a horse in here." In a flash, Keanu reacted. He shoved Rogue against the wall, his hand gripping the man's leather jacket tightly. "Don't you ever lay a hand on my girlfriend," Keanu growled. "My rule is that you and your friend better be gone before I step out of this store, or I'll make sure the police get involved." The menace in Keanu's voice and the raw strength in his stance left both Rogue and Bruiser momentarily stunned. When Keanu released Rogue, his steely gaze didn't waver. The tension in the air was palpable, the golden hues of the setting sun casting long, dramatic shadows across the ground. Without a word, Keanu led Alexandra into the store, leaving the two motorcyclists fuming, their faces flushed with anger and humiliation. From behind, Rogue shouted, "You'll pay for this!" But Keanu didn't flinch. He tightened his grip on Alexandra's hand, his resolve unshaken, his priority clear. Protecting what mattered most to him, Keanu ignored the threats, focusing instead on ensuring Alexandra and Peanut were safe. He chose a secluded spot outside the store, near a shaded corner where they could keep out of sight from the bikers lingering nearby. He tied Peanut to a sturdy post designated for horses, giving the animal a reassuring pat on the neck. "Don't worry," he murmured. "We won't be long." Alexandra stepped into the convenience store to grab water and snacks, while Keanu stayed behind to watch over Peanut. The sun was dipping below the horizon, the lengthening shadows in the parking lot creating an eerie interplay of light and dark. Peanut, though accustomed to long rides, seemed uneasy, shifting slightly as if sensing the tension from its owner. Inside, Alexandra quickly selected a few bottles of water and some snacks. The cashier, a young man named Jim, noticed the tension in her demeanor. "You okay, ma'am?" he asked, glancing toward the window where Keanu and Peanut stood watch. Alexandra gave a curt nod. "I'm fine, thank you," she replied, trying to mask her unease. As Jim bagged her items, he leaned in slightly and whispered, "Just be careful out there. Those guys don't look like the trustworthy type." When Alexandra stepped back outside, Keanu straightened from where he'd been leaning against a lamppost near Peanut. He took the bag from her hands, his sharp eyes scanning the area. "They're still there," he muttered. Alexandra glanced toward the bikers, now perched on their Harleys a little farther away but still within view. "Maybe we should take the longer route back," she suggested. Keanu shook his head. "No, the sun's almost down, and we don't want to give them the impression we're afraid. Just stay close to me and stay calm." He untied Peanut, guiding the horse with a steady hand as they left the station. Peanut walked beside Keanu, its ears flicking nervously, attuned to the tension in the air. They moved slowly along the path, trying to ignore the watchful eyes behind them. Peanut, usually calm, picked up on the unease, but Keanu's steady presence kept it from spooking. However, as they neared the end of the road, the sudden roar of an engine shattered the quiet. Rogue, revving his motorcycle, sped toward them, deliberately accelerating and swerving to startle the horse. As Rogue drew close, he swung a whip he'd been hiding, aiming it at Peanut. Keanu reacted instantly, stepping in front of Alexandra and Peanut, his voice commanding and firm. "That's enough. One more move, and I'm calling the police." Despite his quick intervention, the whip struck Peanut, eliciting a sharp, pained whinny from the horse. Peanut reared up, its front hooves striking the air with force, causing Rogue to stumble back. The serene evening scene dissolved into chaos. Keanu tried to calm Peanut while shielding Alexandra, his voice firm and steady amidst the shouting and startled cries from bystanders. Rogue cursed loudly, his frustration evident. "Damn animal," he spat, waving the whip angrily. "It ruined my whip." Despite the gravity of the situation, Alexandra found herself speaking up, her voice a mix of fear and defiance. "Peanut may be small, but you shouldn't have underestimated it. You brought this on yourself." Keanu finally managed to soothe Peanut, though the horse's body still trembled with residual fear, its eyes wide with alertness. Rogue, humiliated but uninjured, raised the whip again, but Keanu's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Don't even think about it." He held up his phone, the screen lit. "Try anything else and I'll call the cops right now." The threat gave Rogue pause, but before the tension could subside, Bruiser stepped forward, his demeanor shifting from feigned camaraderie to open hostility. "You think you're so high and mighty just because you're famous," Bruiser sneered, his tone venomous. "You think that protects you? Well, it doesn't. We know who you are and where you live, and trust me, the internet is a powerful tool." Keanu's jaw tightened, but he didn't react immediately. After a long, tense silence, he spoke, his voice low and resolute. "If you're a real man, settle this like one." Bruiser smirked, exchanging a glance with Rogue. "Fine. Meet us at the clearing near the old ranch at 4 a.m. tomorrow," he said, his grin widening. "Bring your little horse. Let's see how tough you really are." Alexandra immediately protested, her voice quivering with both anger and fear. "Absolutely not. We're not putting Peanut in danger because of your childish games." But Keanu, his expression unreadable, gave a single nod. "We'll be there," he said, his tone calm but unyielding. Alexandra turned to Keanu, her voice a furious whisper. "What were you thinking? This isn't a game. Peanut's life is at stake." Keanu didn't respond. Instead, he turned his back and walked away, leaving Alexandra grappling with unanswered questions and growing frustration. The silence between them on the walk home was oppressive, weighing heavily on Alexandra. She gripped Peanut's reins tightly, her mind swirling with worry. Keanu, by contrast, appeared outwardly calm, his steps steady. Yet, from time to time, he glanced over his shoulder, his sharp eyes scanning the surroundings with unrelenting vigilance. By the time they reached the ranch, night had fallen completely. The cool darkness enveloped the area, and the distant chirping of crickets was the only sound accompanying their arrival. Alexandra felt an increasing unease as she looked around the quiet property. After locking the door carefully, she watched as Keanu moved systematically, inspecting the perimeter to ensure they hadn't been followed. In the quiet confines of the house, Alexandra's patience finally broke. "You owe me an explanation," she demanded, her voice trembling with both anger and fear. "Why did you agree to this? What exactly are you planning to do?" Keanu only spoke once he was certain everything around them was secure. His tone was calm but resolute. "I understand you're worried," he began, his voice steady but tinged with empathy. "But I need you to trust me. Accepting their challenge is a tactical move to prevent a greater threat." Alexandra's eyes widened in shock. "Tactical? How is agreeing to meet those men again with Peanut of all things going to prevent anything? It's just inviting more danger." Keanu stepped over to the window, pulling the curtain aside to glance at the now dark street. "If I had refused, they might have followed us back here tonight. This way, we have a bit more time to prepare." Even after his explanation, Alexandra's worry remained etched on her face. "But you're not seriously planning to put Peanut in harm's way, are you?" she asked, her tone thick with disbelief. Keanu shook his head, a faint smile briefly softening his features. "Of course not. I would never risk Peanut, or anyone else. I've got a better plan." Though his words calmed her somewhat, the anxiety in Alexandra's eyes lingered. "What kind of plan?" she asked cautiously. Keanu's gaze turned firm. "I'll handle this tonight," he said with quiet determination. "Trust me. I'll put an end to this before it spirals out of control." Alexandra's breath caught as she processed his words. "Tonight? Keanu, that's too dangerous. We should call the police and let them handle this." Keanu shook his head. "The police won't be able to do much without solid evidence. If we call them now, it'll only provoke those men further." Reluctantly, Alexandra nodded, her voice dropping to a soft plea. "I trust you," she said quietly. "But please be careful, whatever you're planning." Keanu smiled reassuringly and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. "Lock the door and don't open it for anyone, okay?" he said before heading toward the door. As Keanu stepped into the cool evening air, the sounds of Peanut pawing lightly at the stable floor reached his ears. A familiar, calming noise that contrasted starkly with the tension of the moment. It only strengthened his resolve to deal with the looming threat swiftly and decisively. His first stop was the convenience store, where the clerk was still on duty. The young man looked up in surprise when Keanu returned. "Everything all right, Mr. Reeves?" the clerk asked, concern evident in his tone. Keanu nodded, his expression composed. "Yes, but I need to ask you something. Those troublemakers from earlier, do you know anything about them? Where they might hang out?" The clerk's face darkened. "Yeah, I know them. They're part of a rough group that's been causing trouble around here since they moved into the area. Their clubhouse isn't far from here." "Where exactly is it?" Keanu pressed, his tone low and steady. The clerk hesitated briefly before providing directions. "A few blocks down. Look for a large gate with an iron fox emblem on it. You can't miss it." Keanu thanked the clerk and followed the directions. It didn't take long before he spotted the gate, the fox emblem glinting faintly in the dim streetlights. He paused for a moment, assessing the situation, his mind a careful balance of determination and caution. Taking a deep breath, Keanu approached the gate and pressed the intercom button. A gruff voice crackled through the speaker. "Who's there?" "Keanu Reeves," he replied, his voice calm yet firm. I'm here to speak with your leader about the incident at the store this morning." There was a brief silence before the voice returned, this time tinged with surprise, and perhaps curiosity. "Keanu Reeves? The actor? Wait there. I'll open the gate." As the gate slowly creaked open, Keanu stepped inside, his sharp eyes taking in the sprawling clubhouse beyond. The scene was lively, lights spilling from windows, figures moving inside, muffled voices carrying on the night air. Approaching the main door, he was met by a tall, broad-shouldered man covered in tattoos, his leather jacket bristling with studs. Despite his intimidating appearance, the man's face softened in recognition. "Mr. Reeves, welcome to our humble abode," he said, extending a hand. "I'm Knuckles. Didn't expect a guest of your caliber tonight." Keanu shook his hand firmly, his demeanor composed. "Thanks for meeting me on short notice, Knuckles. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Knuckles waved the comment aside. "Not at all. Come on in. The guys will be thrilled to meet you." Inside, the room buzzed with activity, a mix of a lounge and a bar. The crowd quieted as Keanu entered, their attention drawn to the unexpected visitor. Whispers of recognition rippled through the group, mingling with mentions of his movies and legendary stunts. Knuckles addressed the room with a booming voice. "Gentlemen, look who's graced us with his presence. Keanu Reeves himself." A murmur of excitement spread, but the atmosphere shifted abruptly as Rogue and Bruiser stormed in, their faces flushed with anger. "What's he doing here?" Rogue barked, pointing accusingly at Keanu. "We had an agreement." Bruiser followed suit, his tone cold and cutting. "Yeah, he was supposed to meet us tomorrow, not snoop around our place tonight." The tension in the room crackled like electricity. Keanu's calm gaze never wavered as he replied, "I'm here to address this morning's incident and to clarify a few things about your behavior." Knuckles turned to Rogue and Bruiser, his expression darkening. "What incident? What behavior?" Keanu's voice was steady, his words cutting through the rising tension. "They harassed my girlfriend and attempted to harm my horse. I think that's worth discussing." The room fell into a stunned silence as all eyes turned to the accused. Knuckles' gaze bore into them, his voice icy. "Is that true?" Caught off guard, Rogue stammered, "We were just joking around, it wasn't serious." Knuckles' expression hardened. "That kind of joke isn't tolerated here. Hand over your patches and leave. You're no longer welcome." Rogue and Bruiser tried to plead their case, but it was in vain. Under Knuckles' stern gaze and the disapproving looks of the other members, they reluctantly removed their rings and bowed their heads before leaving the room. The atmosphere hung heavy with a mix of disappointment and a palpable sense of justice being served. Turning to Keanu, Knuckles' tone softened as he said, "I deeply apologize for what happened. Their behavior does not reflect the values of our club. We value animals, and our competitions are meant to celebrate the bond between humans and horses." Keanu nodded, accepting the apology. "I appreciate your honesty and how swiftly you handled this situation. It's clear your club stands for something much better than what those two represented." As the conversation continued, the tension in the room began to ease. The other members, seeing the situation resolved amicably, returned to their discussions, though many still cast curious glances at their unexpected celebrity guest. What began as a tense confrontation had transformed into an opportunity for understanding and reconciliation. As Keanu prepared to leave, he found himself reflecting on the evening's unexpected twists. It was a stark reminder of how appearances can be deceiving. Before he turned to go, the club leader approached him with genuine remorse. "Mr. Reeves," he began, "I want to offer my sincerest apologies for what you and your family experienced today. As I mentioned earlier, this behavior is not what our club stands for. You were right. Every group has its bad apples, and unfortunately you encountered two of ours." Keanu nodded, his stance more relaxed now. "I appreciate that, It takes a strong leader to acknowledge when their members make mistakes. The club leader smiled and extended his hand. Thank you for giving us the chance to make things right. I'm glad we could resolve this without involving the authorities or resorting to violence. They shook hands, and the atmosphere in the club shifted noticeably. The other members, seeing their leader's acceptance of Keanu, began to approach him, eager to meet the man they had admired on screen. One member, Viper, who had been quietly observing from the start, stepped forward. "Mr. Reeves," Viper began, "we're not just a riding club. Many of us are also horse owners. We regularly host community events centered around animals. Would you and your family be interested in joining one of our events? It could be a great way for the community to better understand our mission." Keanu raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "That sounds interesting. I'll talk to my wife, but I think we'd be open to it." As Keanu was about to leave, Viper added, "If you'd like, Peanut is welcome to join our herd. I have a horse named Blaze, and he loves making new friends." Keanu chuckled. "I'll keep that in mind. Peanut would definitely enjoy having some new companions." On his way home, Keanu pulled out his phone and called Alexandra, recounting the evening's events. When he mentioned the unexpected invitation to the club's community events, Alexandra laughed. "I can't believe it. I thought you were going there to sort out a problem, and now you're coming back with an invitation to a gathering for animals." Keanu laughed heartily. "Life is full of surprises, isn't it? I think Peanut deserves a few new adventures." Alexandra agreed, adding, "But promise me one thing. Next time we need supplies for Peanut, let's just order online, okay?" As Keanu turned onto their street, the warm glow of their home greeted him. Tonight, challenges had been resolved not through force, but through dialogue and understanding, opening new doors to community relationships. As he stepped inside and received Alexandra's embrace, Keanu smiled. This unexpected adventure had brought them closer as a family and opened the way for new friendships. What lies ahead for Peanut? What challenges will Keanu and his family face in their mission to protect this special horse? And how will their newfound connection with the club and local community unfold? The story of Peanut is only just beginning, and mysteries await. Stay tuned for Part 2 to uncover the answers.